Welcome to the hottest movie review on the internet today, the A-List Review. I am your host, the Game Changer, Wes Troop, and it's time to go back to the theater. And the pop culture phenomenon that is Wicked continues, or I suppose ends, with part 2. But will it be as good as part 1? We're gonna find out. My review of the 2025 musical fantasy drama, Wicked for Good. Coming up now. Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her relationship with Glinda the Good Witch of the North is showcased in the second of a two-part feature film adaptation of the Broadway musical. So what did I think of Wicked for Good? I thought it's a magical and emotional musical fantasy film. This sequel to Wicked adapts the second act of the 2003 stage musical by Stephen Schwartz and Winnie Holtzman, which is loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, which is a reimagining of L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It's directed by John M. Chu, who's also known for directing films such as Now You See Me Too, Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, and of course, Wicked. If you're not familiar with Wicked, it follows a different spin on the characters you know from The Wizard of Oz, most notably the relationship between Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Glinda the Good as they embrace their new identities. If you haven't watched the first film, I definitely recommend seeing it before this one, as they're two halves of one long movie. With the first film's runtime being almost 3 hours long, and this one clocking in at 2 hours and 17 minutes, which has some pacing that can drag, you're looking at an almost 5-hour experience combined. I'm sure they could have made the story work more like the stage production, as I'm not positive that it really needed to be two separate films, and here especially feels more padded out than it needed to be to quote-unquote avoid omitting plot points and further develop the characters, or in reality, because of corporate greed. This film picks up back in the merry old land of Oz, as Elphaba is in hiding as the citizens of Oz are told she's a villain through the lies of the wizard and his henchwoman, Madame Marble. Glinda, on the other hand, is well liked by the citizens as the wizard's spokesperson, being told what to do by him and Marble. The animals, who are still able to talk, are leaving Oz and looking for a new home, even though Elphaba tries to get them to stay as she continues to battle for their rights. The sequel carries over some of the messages and themes from the first film, such as the subjectivity of good and evil, the power of friendship, the mistreatment of animals, and the dangers of propaganda and corruption. The production design is excellent with the use of practical sets, with the use of CGI to enhance the sets, not replace them. There's a wedding sequence between Glinda and Fiyero that reminded me a lot of the lavish wedding from Crazy Rich Asians, which is an obvious comparison. There's also an overall darker tone which I can appreciate, as there are with many musicals in their second acts. While there are a handful of laughs, there's definitely not as much humor as the first, as it's more serious. It's also more emotional, and while I surprisingly didn't tear up, I heard some sniffling throughout the theater. The film also ties in what we know from The Wizard of Oz, with Dorothy's arrival, with new spins given to it, including origin stories to some of the famous characters, which some might buy into, while others won't. Also, if you're looking forward to seeing who's playing Dorothy through the teasing of the marketing, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. It's hard to beat the show-stopping Defying Gravity from the ending of the first film, but some of the musical highlights here include No Good Deed and the titular For Good, which I've appreciated for decades. They did add a couple of new songs, which I thought weren't great. If they were going to add material to pad out the runtime, I would have rather seen it given to the supporting players, as I feel they kind of get a raw deal. The chemistry between our leading witches is a bright spot, as well, as they're at odds but still care for each other. The cast reprised their roles, featuring Ariana Grande as Glinda Upland, the popular young woman known as Glinda the Good, Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba Throp, the misunderstood young woman born with green skin seen as an enemy to unite the people against, Jonathan Bailey as Fiero Tigalar, Glinda's fiancé and the captain of the Wizard's Guard, Jeff Goldblum as the maybe not so wonderful Wizard of Oz, Marissa Bode as Nessa Rose Throp, Elphaba's paraplegic younger sister and governor of Munchkinland, Ethan Slater as Bach, Nessa's boyfriend who now works for her, and Michelle Yeoh as Madame Marble, the former Dean of Sorcery who now works for the Wizard. While Wicked for Good is a little less dazzling than the first film, it still looks marvelous and is more darker and emotional, and soars far enough over the rainbow. Number-wise, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, which gives it the A-list rating of Do It, and a high Do It at that. Alright, well that's the show. I'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe right here on YouTube. youtube.com/westside515. Like the show on Facebook, facebook.com/WestTroupeAlist. And of course, you can follow me on the Instagram and Letterboxd at WestAlist. Until next time, Troop out.